Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you see Sean Bock on the screen joining us. Sean, of course, with 24/7 Sports and CBS Sports, Iowa beat writer. And we'll also, after Sean, we'll have our good buddy, Jordan Canzeri. From a couple of years ago, we've had Jordan on a few times, and you've heard all the great work that Kaleb Johnson's doing. Well, some of those names he's passing by on the record books is the Sean Greens, the Tavian Banks, and oh, by the way, Jordan Canzeri from around a decade or so ago with Hawkeye football. So the great running back will join us again. Looking forward to catching up with Jordan. And after Jordan, we'll close out the show in our sports betting segment with Mike Palm from Circa Sports. Mike and I, of course, do a radio show together weekly, but also he joins me sporadically on this television show. So buckle up. We got a lot to cover. Hawkeyes going to Ohio State this weekend on national TV Saturday afternoon, CBS, 2:30 Central Time kick. So let's talk a little bit about what needs to happen this Saturday at Ohio State.
Yeah, you need to run the football effectively, that's for sure. And you need to run to open up the pass. And, this Ohio State team, they did a pretty good job of stopping Michigan State's rushing attack last week. And like I said, I mentioned with the experience that they return all four stars on the defensive line, have some good depth there. Linebacker play has been a little shaky. So I wonder if Iowa tries to get different counters, different misdirections to, keep this linebacker core moving. And obviously playing in motion, going in motion with the wide receivers, that's going to be a big thing too. And, I'm fascinated to see in the passing game. Obviously, we talk about the wide receivers getting guys like Reese Vanderzee, Jacob Gill more consistently involved, even guys like Dayton Howard, Jerry Bowie. Could this be the game that we finally see Luke Lachey unlocked? Because, with some of the skepticism regarding Ohio State's linebackers, whether that be in coverage, tackling, there are opportunities, I think, for Luke Lachey to potentially, break something open. And obviously the storyline going into this game is going to be that Luke's father, Jim, played for the Buckeyes, is the color commentator for Ohio State's radio station. And, that's always been a talking point. But also Kaleb Johnson, he's from Hamilton West Side, down there near Cincinnati. So he's an Ohio native as well. I think Ohio State recruited him a little bit, didn't offer him, but I think was going to go to his game at some point during his senior season. And, it's kind of a cool storylines there. But those are probably going to be two of the most important offensive players for Iowa in this game, along with the offensive line, because, the offensive line needs to, continue to build on what it's been able to do the last couple of games, because that can really set Iowa's offense over the mark. And it's going to be a physical game. I mean, Kirk Ferentz mentioned that at his press conference, physicality is going to win this game. And, we talk a lot about Ohio State's playmakers and their passing game and their running game. Haven't even mentioned their offense yet, because their offense is really good. But, you got to be able to run the football and you got to be able to win the trenches. And Iowa has capability on both sides of the ball to do that. But, you just got to be able to execute and, play a near perfect game.
Yeah, I think you hit it right there. When we talk about running the ball, yeah, we have, the Hawks have to run the ball to be effective in the passing game. No kidding, because we see what happens when the Hawks are forced to pass the ball on 3rd and 8s, second long, third and mid-range, 3rd and long. Doesn't work well. So hopefully that motion, as you talk about pre-snap motion and getting guys moving, Luke Lachey, a name we haven't heard of in a while. Vanderzee, as you mentioned, since game 1 against Illinois State, that big game for the freshman. So hopefully we can get some of these guys rolling. Cade McNamara, get him rolling from the quarterback spot. I think the big thing you mentioned, Sean, a couple of big things there. Iowa, of course, 3-1 overall, going in 1-0 in the Big Ten. Of course, Ohio State 4-0 and 1-0 in the Big Ten. But when you talk about their offense, and that's where I'm going next, you mentioned special teams, Reese Dakin coming off, filling in for Tory Taylor very well now with the Bears in the NFL. But Reese Dakin was the National Punter of the Week award winner last year, the Ray Guy Award winner. So we know that's going well. A little inconsistent at times with flat punts, but for the most part, has picked up right where Tory Taylor left off. So that's a good thing for special teams. Drew Stevens doing well, continuing in the kicking game. But so let you and I talk about defense facing this Ohio State offense. That's no small shakes either, Sean. They're going to want to run the ball and then open up the passing. Of course, Will Howard transferred over from K-State last year. Very effective at quarterback. So they've got a stable quarterback situation and offense. So let's talk a little bit about Ohio State's offense, what the Hawks need to do on defense against them, please, Sean.
Yeah, it starts with Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State's wide receiver, the true freshman, who has proven that he is the number one, recruit in the country coming into this year. Probably the most talented wide receiver in college football that we have right now. They have him, and then they have Emeka Egbuka, another wide receiver who brings a little more experience to the table and has been really productive this year for the Buckeyes. And Carnell Tate is another guy, Chicagoland native, who has been a pretty good receiver so far for Ohio State. Those three guys are going to be the keys for the Iowa secondary. And Kirk Ferentz mentioned today, too, that Ohio State has had some pretty big explosive plays this year. And Iowa, that has been an area of concern this year, in the defense and allowing those big plays. So they got to be able to tame those. It also comes down to the rushing game. Quinshon Judkins, an Ole Miss transfer, has been really good for Ohio State this year. And then they have another running back in Trevion Henderson, who also, they've had a really good 1-2 punch and is probably the most talented 1-2 punch in the country, definitely in the Big Ten. So being able to, have a balance and stopping those two, different parts of the offense is going to be really crucial for Iowa in this game. And like you said, an experienced quarterback in Will Howard from Kansas State, but also that offensive line. That offensive line is a very physical group for the Buckeyes. And, it's going to be big for Iowa's offensive or defensive line to be able to get that pressure consistently and put pressure on Will Howard, because he's a completely different quarterback when he's under pressure. I mean, as is most quarterbacks, but it's night and day when he is getting pressured. So it's going to start there, and it's going to start too, I think, another key in this game overall for Iowa is getting off to a good start, because this team has struggled with getting off to good starts outside of maybe that Iowa State game. But obviously, as we know, the second half collapse. You got to be able to put together a complete game. Michigan State, did a really good job, or Ohio State, struggled in the Michigan State game when it came to getting off to a good start. It was pretty slow until Jeremiah Smith had his 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, on the second half of the second quarter. But Michigan State was right in that game. I think it was 10-7 at one point, and you kind of had yourself thinking, are we going to see an upset in East Lansing? I mean, obviously Ohio State's a more talented team, but Ohio State's been prone to getting off the slow starts, and if you're Iowa, you got to be able to pounce on that, because if you want to win this game, you got to be able to play a complete game. Like, you're not beating Ohio State if you're playing a first half like you did against Minnesota, but then you totally light it up in the second half. That's gonna be a lot harder to do. You got to be able to get on these guys early and kind of establish yourself, but also hang in there the whole time. Don't give up some of these big plays that allow those big opportunities and can really open the game up.
Sean, we've talked about this in weeks past with James Morris, former Hawkeye linebacking great, had mentioned what you just said. You cannot allow those big plays. We've heard Phil Parker say that all year. You've heard defensive coordinator, and you've heard Kirk Ferentz, head coach, say that as well. It all starts up front, Sean, as they always say. Hawks offensive line, Hawks defensive line. Sean, great to see you again. We'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks.
Yep, thank you, Dave, for having me, as always.
You're very welcome, and thank you as always. So for Sean Bock, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed. We'll be back with more. And Jordan Canzeri, former Hawkeye running back, great.
Hawkeyed is brought to you by Better Edge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on Better Edge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kajewski, Better Edge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at betteredge.com/Hawkeyed and get $10 to start winning more today. Better Edge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Farming comes with a lot of frustrations, but the number one conversation you don't want to have is when your local seedsman says, I'm sorry, we don't have that hybrid that you early ordered and paid for. Hi, this is Joe Mershman from Mershman Seeds. We do business a little different. We call it the Mershman Seeds no substitution or it's free guarantee. If we do not deliver the hybrid that you ordered, the substitution will be free. Contact your local Mershman Seeds dealer today and we'd be happy to increase your corn yield with our best hybrids. From Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our good buddy Jordan Canzeri joining us. Yes, that Jordan Canzeri, the name you've been hearing for the last umpteen weeks, with Kaleb Johnson going up and down the Hawkeyes rushing record charts and large accomplishments. Besides Jordan Canzeri, you also hear Sean Green, you hear Tavian Banks. But Jordan is back at his alma mater in York High School in New York, coaching his high school football team, the Flying Horses. Yes, I said the Flying Horses. So Jordan is doing that as well as being a principal assistant, admin, busy guy. Can't thank him enough for recording this with us on Tuesday night, October 1st, after practice. So Jordan Canzeri, great to see you again. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, doing great, Dave. And again, thank you for having me.
Truly our pleasure here, man. It's always great to see you. We had you on a couple years ago. Want to keep this an annual thing with you, so got to start with the obvious. You played almost a decade ago for the Hawks, finished up in 15, but you 256 yards rushing in a game, 43 carries record still carries in a game. You started playing as a freshman right away, then redshirt, then had 3 more great years. Talked to a lot of your former teammates, Jordan, specifically quarterback. By the way, you played for 3 different quarterbacks. A lot of guys talk about, oh, he played for different offensive coordinators. You played for 3 different quarterbacks, but with Beathard, Vandenberg, and Rudolph. But I've talked to James Vandenberg much about you in the past, and he just said how smart you were to be able to absorb a playbook by the time you're a freshman and start playing right away. Before we get to Kaleb Johnson, I want to dote a little bit on you. So I know you're too humble, so I got to tee you up. What do you got to do to come straight out of high school to be a starting running back in the Big Ten or start playing as a freshman for Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa Hawkeyes, Jordan?
I mean, you just got to put time in. And I tell a lot of my players now that, again, it's just nice where I can simply just say, look at me. I wasn't the tallest, I wasn't the biggest, but I was a person that just believed in myself, no matter how many times I was told, don't go to Iowa, you won't play until your senior year, 5th year. It just motivated me, and I used it as, fuel, where I took the time to actually dive into the playbook. And then simple little things where even at practice, I'm watching the guy going in front of me, trying to get the mental reps, but I'm also doing my running back steps. It was, again, watching each and every rep of the person in front of you to think like, oh, that was a good cut, or like, oh, maybe I would have done this, or just going off that read mentally. And then when you're actually in there, just putting the effort in. But it is work, it's time, but you just know, and luckily it, did work out for me, that when you put that type of commitment in and when you invest that time of effort and time, it things can roll out for you. And luckily I was given the opportunity to play and took it from there.
You were back in Iowa City and told me a great story off the air. Let's bring it on the air. How that is still legacy and family at Iowa. And you let Coach Ferentz know, hey, I'm back in Iowa City. Not only did he bring you back into practice and say, hey, I'll walk around and see the guys, but he brought you back the next day to talk to the guys. Talk to us about that experience, Jordan. And that just love of family and teamwork, that never seems to end at Iowa. And that's probably the neatest thing I think I like about the Iowa program so much.
Yeah, it's a lot that many people don't, realize and know about, Coach Ferentz, but just, again, his care for his players and just the what you feel when you come back is just feeling like, again, you're truly a part of a family. With the legacy group, just everything that Ben Hansen and a whole group of them do, everything, it's just awesome for just what they provide. And then again, for me to just text Coach and just say like, hey, I'm in Iowa City, would love to be able to stop by practice, and to literally just be able to go in there, watch the end of practice, and then be asked to speak to the guys afterwards. It was something that I didn't expect, but, was definitely really excited for. And especially being now a head coach, I really just wanted to view practice with that type of lens to, really see how things were done and transitioned in between periods, and, just really learn in that way as well. But it was funny, and, I don't mind sharing, it's that in the team meeting when Coach Ferentz is just readdressing it and letting the guys know about me speaking later on. He made the little joke, but I love it because, again, it just shows what is possible with the vast amount of athletes that can come across in different programs. But he's like, you're going to be hearing from Jordan Canzeri soon, and in a few weeks you'll have Sean Green. You'll see the difference between the two as soon as you see them. And I'm just like, yeah, no, it's true. But again, it's those are the things you appreciate, that you can have, a head coach, again, be that friendly, that inviting, and then giving opportunities like that. It's just something I'm truly, truly grateful for. Can't say it enough.
Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on Kaleb Johnson, please.
I mean, I'm impressed where, just his running style. It's not only that he's fast enough to, beat the secondary, but it's also he's strong where he runs through and he breaks a lot of tackles. And that's something that you really need as a running back, somebody that can do it all. But as well, it's just the mindset where, I know some people, they can hear some interviews and think, certain players may come across as like arrogant or too cocky or things like that. But, the ones that I've heard, he gives his credit. He works hard. He knows that he is doing well, and he's obviously getting that type of appreciation from when he's being interviewed. But he gives his line a shout outs, he gives his coaches a shout outs. And like, that's again what you want as a player, for somebody that not only puts the work in and not only is talented, but also just appreciates where they are and what they have. And, it just speaks a lot. And even for myself personally, I'm impressed by him where, I won't go into true detail of how practice went when I was there, but when I have a person like him come up at the end and just, we have our own conversation and talk about, certain things that can help work on, and then not a minute later a turnover and see he's got a guy doing it. Like it's just, again, a person who wants it, a person who's hungry, a person who, wants to, do well for their team and for themselves. So again, it's just been real nice to see the type of year he's been having so far. I'm happy for him.
What is your biggest takeaway from playing ball at Iowa over the years?
I mean, there's a ton. There's so many that I could name, and so many that I could have, highlight to show appreciation for. But the one that's coming to my mind right now, I remember was, I believe it was Minnesota, and at night, and everybody was holding up their cameras with the with the flashlight on, and CJ just like, guys, it doesn't get better than this. And it's something that, again, you just, even in the huddle, even in the midst of battle, just to be able to like take that second to really appreciate the atmosphere, and just, again, the gift of being able to play the amazing game of football, but also in a stadium like Kinnick, especially now, obviously, for not being able to be a part of it, but even just on sideline for the Wave, it's like, it's stuff that you really sit back the older you get and just be like, it's, again, to play at Iowa is something that you can't compare.
Jordan Canzeri, great to see you again, Jordan. Thanks so much.
No, great to, again, talk with you, Dave, and more than appreciated. Can't wait for the next. And just like I said, it's awesome to be able to do this, rehash and go through the memories of Iowa, and just always love returning back to Iowa City. But can't wait to just see what the Hawks continue to do the rest of the season.
Yeah, over 2,000 career rushing yards. So truly one of the Hawkeye former greats, that's for certain. So Jordan Canzeri, former Hawkeye running back. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed, and Jordan, likewise to you, and thank you so much. So again, back with more Hawkeye to close out the show with Mike Palm from Circa Sports Betting. Back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments. Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Soon you'll see our buddy Mike Palm on the screen. Mike, of course, VP of Operations from Circa Sportsbook. Mike, of course, a Northeast Iowa native from the Dubuque area, as, of course, am I, from the Postville, Castelli area, Northeast Iowa. So keeping this Northeast Iowa thing going, Mike. Got to get us ready for the Hawkeyes Ohio State game. It opened a little higher in the 20s, low 20s, 20 and a half. Some had 21. Hawks right now on Tuesday afternoon, as we record this on October 1st, Hawks are a 19.5-point underdog, and the over-under's at 45. First of all, thanks for joining us. It's always good to see you. And what are your thoughts on this game and the action right now, Mike, please?
First of all, Dave, I'm a little surprised at the number. We were speculating in the book Saturday night as Ohio State was beating Michigan State, what this number would open at on Sunday morning. Pretty much the general consensus was somewhere between 23 and 23 and a half. We actually opened at 20 and a half, as you referenced. And I thought, well, they'll bet this game through 21 pretty quickly. Not the case. The numbers actually come down a full point to 19 and a half. I guess that's some respect for the Iowa rushing game. How good can the Iowa offense be? Can the Iowa offense score 14? Can they score 17 points? I don't know. Have they been tested? That Iowa State defense is pretty good. Now, they put up, 20 or 19 against Iowa State, but they were down inside the 5-yard line several times, first and goal, and didn't capitalize. This Iowa State team has gone on, and defenses look pretty solid. So I'll be interested if this number doesn't creep back up to at least 20. But right now, public saying Iowa is going to keep this game within 2 touchdowns.
Let's talk a little bit about Kaleb Johnson and the Heisman Trophy watch. How are you guys looking right now at the book? He was in the top 25 as far as betting lines go a week ago when you and I talked about this on radio. How's he looking now?
Yeah, remember he entered he entered. I think he was the 23rd lowest odds when he entered and got his own number in there. I just went back and looked this morning. There are 18 ahead of him that have shorter odds, so he's creeping down into that conversation. This will be obviously the key game for him going up against Ohio State, a top 5 team, and if he can put up 120 yards and score a couple touchdowns, I think he thrusts himself in the top 10 in the conversation.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with you. That's great to hear. So, Mike, as always, you guys take prop bets and do specials. And I want to remind the viewers, Mike and I have talked much about this in the past when he's joined me on this show and radio. But to Mike's earlier point about taking specials with the Heisman Trophy and Kaleb Johnson, when wrestling gets started here for the Hawkeyes, Circa is one of the very few books that takes college wrestling bets, and Mike does a great job going into the risk room and setting lines. So get ready for that, viewers. So, Mike, let's you and I talk a little bit about the NFL and George Kittle with a big touchdown catch last week. We talk about props with, Eric All. A lot of Hawkeye fans forget. Let's not forget Eric All, even though he had a shortened career at Iowa, came over from Michigan with Cade McNamara, played last year briefly and got hurt, but doing big things with the Bengals. So there are some specials. Of course, Laporta doing great with the Lions, and TJ Hawkinson will come back with the Vikings soon. So we've got a lot of Hawkeyes with some props out there if you're the number one skill position player in the NFL, like tight end, wide receiver, running back, quarterback. Let's talk a little bit about some of those props, please, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all those skill positions, if you're the starter, or if for wide receivers will go too deep, you're going to have catches, you're going to have a yards prop, and you're going to have an anytime touchdown prop, yes or no. Now, if it's a primetime game, so Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, we'll also have who's going to score the first touchdown. So they'll be a part of that pool. And then for the running backs, obviously it's number of rushes, rushing yards, and number of and yes, no on the touchdown prop. So yeah, very interesting. All of them scored a big night last night for the Lions. That was a great game on Monday Night Football that we saw. Basically, if you bet any of the offensive props, they all cash.
That's right. So again, as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, October 1st, Mike Palm joins us, and Mike, of course, VP of Operations out at Circa Sportsbook. Folks, do yourself a favor. Download the app. It's free, especially in the state of Iowa where it's legal, at Circa Sports via social media or circasports.com. Download it. Start playing today. If you compare it against other sportsbooks, there is no comparison. You will pick Circa Sportsbook every time. So, Mike, anything else on the way out the door before we get rolling? Of course, WNBA, Caitlin Clark, so much heat this year, pun intended, with the Fever. She got on the WNBA first team, Rookie of the Year. My goodness, social media and the press. She was on 60 Minutes the other night, national TV on CBS. Let's talk a little bit about the Fever and the WNBA. By the time this show airs, though, the WNBA may be going into the final series because the two semifinal series have 1-0 leads with the home teams looking like they're going to hold court. But let's talk about Caitlin Clark and WNBA, please, Mike.
Yeah, certainly. And the two big favorites won the awards. A'ja Wilson for the MVP. I think we should post next year, Caitlin, what are her odds? Of course, to be MVP, but top 3 maybe as well, or even top 2. I wouldn't doubt that she might be, she was the 4th shortest shot in the betting market, as Gino Auriemma reminded everyone this year, opening her rookie season. She's probably going to be either 2nd or 3rd. Obviously, A'ja Wilson will be favored again. And then it'll be a mix of probably Breanna Stewart, Caitlin, and maybe Natisha Collier, depending on how far the Lynx go in the playoffs this year. Aces might be out in quick order. This Liberty team is really, really good. I want to mention one other thing before we go, Dave. I'm sitting here in the sports book, as we mentioned Tuesday afternoon. We got 2 of the wild card games underway. Check out Circa Sports, the playoff offerings. Still have those World Series exactas up there, as well as on every game. You're going to have pitcher strikeouts, number of outs recorded, and then we'll probably have 4 to 5 players from each team, yes or no home run for the game.
I love it. Major League Baseball playoffs, and I can see you're mildly distracted, and you should be, because Hugh Jackson for MLB playoffs. And the cool thing is Colin Ray with the Brewers, former Rick Heller's been on the show many times, my radio and this TV show. Rick, of course, coached him at UNI, and then Colin went to Indiana State with Rick, and a mercurial path through the major leagues. Colin Ray in his mid-30s, Cascade, Iowa native from your home area of Dubuque. Colin doing very well with the Brewers. Has been a starting pitcher, kind of middle relief, long relief right now. We'll see where he fits in, but I'm so glad you mentioned baseball too. Mike, it's always great to see you, and thank you so much.
Dave, thank you for the time.
Truly my pleasure as always. So there he is, folks. Mike Palm, VP of Operations, Circa Sports. At Circa Sports for his social media or circasports.com. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. Thanks also to Sean Bock and Jordan Canzeri, former Hawkeye running back. Great Sean, of course, with CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. Thanks also to Greg Kieski and James Siles with at Better Edge and BetterEdge.com, my production partners. And to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.